I'm gonna flip this one more time.
Hello, I'm joined with Leah Stancil, the head women's swimming and diving coach at Tulane University. Coach Stancil, how are you doing today?
I'm great, thank you.
Awesome to hear. I wanted to thank you for joining me today for this interview, and we can just go ahead and jump right into some questions. So,
Okay.
we had the AAC Swimming and Diving Championships. Can you explain to me how those went for your team?
They did really well. We had quite a few best times. We had quite a few champions in our meet, and a few school records were broken. So all in all, it was a pretty successful competition, a pretty successful meet. Our team is a small team. Was a small team this year. We had 15 swimmers and 5 divers, and we placed third overall, which is the highest that we've placed since I've been here. So we're moving forward, and we had some NCAA B cuts. So all in all, we had a pretty good meet.
Yeah, so that's not even a full roster then, a full 18-person roster with the 15 swimmers and 4 divers. So that's really
Yep,
impressive that you could get
5 divers. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really awesome. And I saw the that 800 freestyle relay on the first night or some. I think it was. That was really really impressive.
Yeah.
So what do you think that the biggest reason for for your success was this year?
Um, I think a big part was our leaders. Our leaders this year really. It was a hard year because we don't have a pool, and
Right.
it there's a lot of extra time taken to have to drive to the different facilities. And so if we had 2 days, if we had 2 practices in one day, they were traveling and travel alone, they would have an extra 2 hours. And so I think it especially in the fall, it wore them down quite a bit mentally. Um, but the leaders of our team did a really good job of trying to keep things positive, tried to keep everyone focused on the end of the season. And then COVID is still going on, so a lot of people weren't necessarily sick with COVID, but they were sick with other things. I think a big part of it was our leadership being able to keep everyone on track despite all the different unideal happening to us.
Yeah. So explain to me a little bit about what's happening with your pool.
Um, right now, they are in the process of um, just fine tuning everything. Nothing's been started yet, and so it's hard to describe what is going on. I just know that they are going to be fixing. Um, they're supposed to be relining the pool. They're supposed to be redoing the lighting. They're supposed to be redoing the circulation of air, so the HVAC system. So a lot of things are supposed to be done to it. It just hasn't started just yet. So the hope is once everything is complete, it's like a brand new pool.
Okay,
Um, it just hasn't started yet.
I see. So can you give me a little bit of background on your coaching experience, like where you come from before being the head coach at Tulane?
Yeah. So I was originally born and raised in Barbados, which is a Caribbean island. It's the most southeasterly island in the Caribbean. And I came to the US for college. And I went to the University of Florida. So I swam at the University of Florida, and I did my grad school at University of Florida. That's where I met my husband. And I was actually studying to be a sports psychologist. Like I was doing my master's in sport and exercise psychology with the plan to go on and get my PhD to be a sports psychologist. However, my dad passed away in the middle of my grad school, and so I had to get a job. And at that time, I was in the process of getting my green card. And the only thing that I felt qualified to do was to coach swimming at that time.
Right.
So I started, my first job was at SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design. And I realized that I really enjoyed coaching. So from there, I went to the University of South Carolina, and I was there for 2 years. And then from there, I went back to the University of Florida, and I spent 10 seasons there.
Awesome. And then you followed
And
up.
then I started at Tulane as a head coach
Right, awesome.
after Florida.
That's a really great story. But so I know you battled breast cancer in the years 2019 and 2020, I think it was. Can you talk about a little
Mhm.
bit about that experience and how it was kind of coaching while doing that?
Um, Honestly, I don't know how I got through it. Really, by the grace of God. It was challenging. It was hard. But I would say coaching kind of had helped me stay focused on something other than my treatment and other than the fact that I had breast cancer. What I ended up doing was I had chemo once every 3 weeks. And so the first week after chemo, I was useless. I was exhausted, brain fog, couldn't really focus. So what I ended up doing was the 2 weeks that I had that I was somewhat functional, I would write practices and I would write the program for the next 3 weeks.
Gotcha.
Um, and so that's kind of the routine that I kept going in for the whole fall. Because basically the fall semester up until December was when I had a really strong chemo,
Hmm.
and the girls were great. I mean, they the girls were great. My staff was great. My assistant coach was fantastic. He really helped keep everything on track. But it was hard. It was very, very hard to go to chemo and then come to practice. But on the flip side of that, it helped me stay focused and have somewhere to go and have a plan to do for the next 2 weeks. But it was a good routine. So I didn't go to very many competitions that semester. I didn't travel with the team at all.
Okay.
I stayed home in the fall, and I traveled a little bit more in the spring. So up until December was chemo, and then I had surgery, and then I had radiation starting in March, in February, end of February, March, and then I had surgery again in April, I think it was, and then I
Wow.
had a drug that I had to take for a year. So that was throughout all of those other things. I was taking a wasn't necessarily a chemo drug, but it's I don't remember what type of drug it's called, but it's essentially it's a chemo drug. It's a drug for chemo, the type of cancer, breast cancer that I had,
Okay.
that I had to take for a year. It's called Herceptin for all those people who are familiar with breast cancer. So I had to take that for a year. Um, and then I had surgery again in June. So it was a year-long process. It was a very long year. And then in the process of that, so that March, in February, March was when COVID hit. So then it was two things I was stressed
Yeah.
about.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, so I was actually in the process of getting radiation when COVID hit. I was going through my radiation treatment at that time.
Yeah. Well, that's a really impressive story, and I'm really happy that you came out on top.
Thank you.
But I mean, at the beginning of what you were saying, you said you don't really know how you got through it, but so clearly you are a very strong woman. What does like being a strong woman or strong-willed mean to you?
Oh, good question. And thank you for saying that I was a strong woman, because at the time I didn't feel very strong at all. But I think to me, being strong and being a strong woman and being strong-willed is someone who is able to get back up despite the obstacles that may hit them down. To me, that is being strong, being able to ask for help when you need help. Um, I think that is one of the biggest way to show your strength is being vulnerable, being willing to accept when you're not in control of the situation. I mean, if anything that cancer's taught me is to release control of whatever it is you think you have control of that you really don't have any control over. Cancer has taught me, and I am a recovering control freak. And so cancer really taught me that I have to try to only just control what I can control and try to let go of what I can't control. And so I think strength comes into play in being able to recognize that and being able to get back up dust yourself off when things aren't going as you want it to be,
Mhm.
and just keep on going. I think that's the best description. But asking for help when needed is vital. Is vital because no one can do things on their own.
Mhm. Yeah, so my next question was actually what was the most important thing that you learned during your battle with cancer? Would you say that kind of giving up control would kind of be that?
Yeah, it's and it's hard. It's I the other thing that it's taught me along the lines of that, having control and wanting to have control over everything and having to release control, because again, I had cancer in my body at the time. Was I felt extremely healthy. I was an Olympic athlete, so my body was healthy. I did the exercising that needed to happen, and then being told that I had cancer at 41, it's like, and I didn't have cancer in my family. I didn't have breast cancer in my family. It was just kind of like I did all this stuff to try to
Yeah.
prevent this, and I still got it.
Mhm.
And so releasing control, and then just trying to live in the current, in the present. I'm still working on this, but during my treatment, I literally had to go day by day. Like
Mhm.
I could not plan weeks, months down the line, because I didn't know what was going to be happening weeks, months down the line with me. I didn't know the next day. I didn't know if my stomach was going to be upset. I didn't know if I was going to wake up feeling refreshed and ready to go. I, I had to take each day, and that was a hard because I was a planner.
Mhm.
I'm looking down the line, all the things that I have to get done, and with cancer treatment, even with the treatment itself, okay, I was diagnosed with cancer and I went to my oncologist. I'm like, okay, what's the plan? What are we doing? What's like,
Mhm.
how is everything going to be done? And she's like, we're not going to know the next step until we figure out how you handle the first step. And that was hard.
Mhm.
Um, so control, releasing control. And I think just living in the present are the two biggest things that I learned.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing your story with me and getting vulnerable. My final question is just to circle back to you being a coach. What do you see the future of Tulane swimming and diving as? Like, what do you want to see in the future?
I want to see our pool completed.
Right.
That's the first thing. But I think the sky's the limit, especially just realizing how well we did despite not having our pool. And I would say that the people that was most affected, I mean, the swimmers were affected significantly, but I think the divers were affected even more, um, because relatively with swimming, just give us some lanes and we can swim up and down. But diving, it's not every pool has a diving facility.
Right.
um so I think that we can be even better if once we have that pool facility, and then the sky's the limit.
Hmm.
Recruiting is an important tool that I need to make sure I have, but um I think it's important to get to the highest extent of what you want without that facility that you need. um but I expect great things from Tulane.
Awesome. Well, that concludes all the questions I have for today, Coach Stancil. Once again, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. My pleasure.